myself. All right, I think everyone can hear me. My
Yes.
part in this was really just going to be the introductions, which you've taken care of. Aside from that, I just want to give everybody an update that I'm in the process of, since we've selected Bergman as our consultants on this, are very experienced with this type of work. I'm working on getting the referral process together, and we should be in a ledge cycle on November, December. So we should be contracting with them, right after that. We're going to try and do this as quickly as we can, because I know everyone really wants to see some progress moving on this. So with that, I can let Kimberly talk about the draft scope that hopefully everybody has in front of them, and we'll take it from there. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. And so we were just I know, Matt, you had just mentioned that everyone's had the draft scope for just a couple days now. So we were going to take just a few minutes up front to really talk through the overall process at a fairly high level, and then we can go back and answer any questions that you might have. Before diving in, I think, I've had the chance to review your meeting, your last couple meetings, and I know you've talked quite a bit about the fact that this climate action plan process is really intended to be broken up into 2 phases, with phase 1 really being focused on county operations. So that's an important differentiator as we're starting to look at scope, particularly as it relates to the outreach process. And that is really, what we have outlined in task 1. So for the purposes of this initial phase of the planning process, you'll note that the outreach process really is intentionally internal looking because of its focus and emphasis on county operations. So from an engagement perspective in this phase, we really are looking at, obviously regular coordination and meetings with the county, attending and participating in the monthly meetings with this group. And there might be times in the process where there's a lot of content to get through and we have to schedule an extra meeting in order to get through that content, but that's something that we can talk about and evaluate as we move forward. We'll also be doing a lot of stakeholder engagement within the county, various departments, and really this is to inform that first phase of information gathering and inventory. So really understanding and creating that baseline assessment for county operations. I'm going to let Robert talk a little bit more about that in a minute. There might be some external stakeholders that we do want to reach out to that have an indirect relationship to county operations. So we'll be exploring those and talking about who those potential stakeholders might be with the county and yourselves as we move forward. And then of course, elected officials and county officials will be an important stakeholder because we do need ultimately full support and buy-in for this process. And particularly as we start thinking about what are those metrics we're hoping to achieve and what are the targets that we ultimately want to be striving for as part of this process. So that really sums up the engagement process for phase 1. As we do transition into phase 2, we will have more of an external focused engagement process, but we'll certainly have an opportunity to talk about that in more detail down the road. The other primary task that correlates to that engagement is the creation of the greenhouse gas emission inventory and kind of baseline. And this is where our team members from Michael Baker will really be helping to lead that charge. So I'm going to hand it over to Robert for just a minute or two to talk a little bit about that process in more detail.
Thanks, Kim.
You.
Okay.
Like you're still on mute, Robert.
Robert's still on mute, yeah. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
whatever you
okay.
did worked. Thank you, Robert.
There's something. Oh gosh. All right. Well, anyways, when it comes to calculating the inventory, we've obviously looked back at what previous agencies have done, particularly Rochester, and we also looked at Ulster County, which is kind of being held up as one of the better plans that have been done in the state. Both of them rely on something that was developed by an association referred to as the Local Governments for Sustainability. It started in Germany, so it has an inappropriate acronym of ICLEI. But anyways, ICLEI has something called the Local Government Operations Protocol, which is really a framework for calculating the inventories. And it's probably going to be one of the paths that, or it's probably going to be our preferred path to go when we're calculating these inventories. And it also will give us the advantage of being consistent with what Rochester has already done. One of the things we want to look at is that ICLEI has produced a software package. It's an online program called ClearPath. And ClearPath might actually have more of a role in phase 2. What it allows you to do is it also helps you in developing your inventory, but it also has forecasting, planning, and monitoring sections to it. That would just make us consistent with other areas and may actually help to make the process a little bit easier. If all of that, for some reason, we decide to go a different route, we do have a third option of using the EPA protocol. Very, very similar to what ICLEI has proposed, with a couple of twists on it specifically for data that's more readily available in the States. But that being said, we really are leaning to using the same methods as Rochester did. Now, one of the goals in the scope is to get the county climate, make it classified as one of the climate smart communities. If I invite everyone to take a look at that, it's NYSDEC Climate Smart Communities, but if you go in there, they actually have a list of different alternatives and programs that you can go after. I'm not saying that we're bound specifically by what's in there, but it is definitely a good jumping off point when we start looking at future alternatives and how we're going to achieve the goals after the inventory. And so the more we can shoehorn our alternatives to better reflect what's in there will help with the scoring system in order to allow us to for the county to be classified as a climate smart community. I'd also point out that there's actually 2 levels of climate smart communities. There's bronze and silver. You need twice as many points off of their system to become silver. So that's something that the committee will want to discuss as to how they are going. So that's roughly what we're planning to do when it comes to the inventory.
Great, thanks, Robert. And so ultimately, as part of the process, the inventory, so collecting all of that data will help us understand where county operations are now. So there are a lot of different inputs that we'll be looking for and assessing. We'll kind of that baseline snapshot. And then our next step will be, okay, what are our target metrics? What do we want to achieve? What are the timeframes in which we want to achieve them? Do we want to be consistent with the state goals of a 40% greenhouse gas reduction by 2030 and then 85% by 2050? Do we want to modify those overarching goals? So understanding the target and the county's objectives is going to be really important. The city of Rochester went with slightly different metrics than the state metrics, and maybe there's a desire to be aligned with the direction of the city of Rochester. That's something we'll be able to talk about in more detail, but ultimately, whatever those metrics are defined as, our policies, our strategies, the actions that are identified through this process will all be aimed at helping the county to ultimately achieve those metrics. So that really gets into task 2 of this scope of work. Robert also mentioned Ulster County. They did just recently complete a climate action plan, also specifically for government operations. Happy to send around the link to folks to look at, just as Matt had mentioned, checking out the City of Rochester CAP. That would give you a good sense of a climate action plan, again, specifically focused on the operational side of things. and give you a sense of potential deliverable, comparable deliverable. But there are other case studies that we'll be looking at, and there are certainly things we'll be asking you to look at and sharing with us what you like or not like about certain approaches in other plans that have been completed across the country. So after we have those metrics identified, we will get into really the meat and the most important part of the planning process, where we do get into identifying those specific actions and policies. Typically, we will identify core areas that we want to build around, or that we will structure those recommendations around. So in this case, it could be buildings and facilities, vehicle fleet, transit fleet, just general county policies. And then there tend to be those outlying smaller scale recommendations that when combined can have a really strong cumulative impact on greenhouse gas emission reductions. Simple as changing out the faucets throughout all the county buildings into water efficient faucets, or looking at streetlights or carpooling programs. So there will be a pretty strong range and robust range of different policies and projects that ultimately will come out of this. Robert also mentioned the Climate Smart Communities certification program. This could be a great opportunity for an early action item that really could get rolling even before this plan is completed. So all along the way, as different opportunities present themselves, we will be looking for those options where we can start to make strides towards our ultimate goals even before this planning process is completed. So that might be another great topic that we can talk about in an upcoming meeting and give you a little more background and context on the certification program, what it means or what needs to be accomplished in order to be designated as bronze or silver, as Robert was mentioning as well. One other element as we get farther into the program and thinking about policies and recommendations is an internal communication strategy. So how do we let different county departments and different county employees know about this project and how it is impacting or could impact county operations? So we don't have a clear strategy yet in place. It's something we started talking about yesterday with Pat and Joe at the county, and something we will continue to look at and monitor. What's the best communication strategy for sharing this internally with county staff and county officials? And really that kind of sums up the overarching process. Ultimately, we'll be packaging all those different tasks into various deliverables that you'll have the chance to review and comment on along the way. And then ultimately at the end, those get compiled into the full climate action plan that will be available, again, for you to comment on, and then for us to finalize after we get all of your feedback. From a timeline perspective, we are anticipating this process to take about 9 to 12 months, and certainly welcome any further discussion if there are thoughts on timing for completion of this work. So with that, Matt, I think I'll hand it back to you, and our team's available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks so much, Kim and Robert. Wanted to open up the floor to comments and questions. I had a couple myself, so I'll go ahead and start. I wanted to just ask Mike in the county, do we have a rugged idea how extensive the inventory will be? Have we identified facilities and other items we want to inventory over the next 9 to 12 months or so?
We do. We'll compile that. We'll share that list with Bergman. They have a good handle on county facilities and where we have our highest energy users.
Mm-hmm.
Probably what's critical. We'll go after the low-hanging fruit first. The county has, an extensive number of facilities, whether down to park lodges,
Right.
up to airport, or the community hospital. So we have that data compiled here. We'll share that. We have a good handle on our energy usage.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a good handle on our fuel usage. So we'll want to make sure we look at every facility and determine, how impactful they will be for, sort of a deep dive of analysis. But I think we're the largest real estate owner in downtown Rochester. So, we've got a lot to work with.
No doubt. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Just want to share from my industrial experience over the years, what's key up front here, and I think we all know this implicitly, is that we make an effort to define all the operational definitions that are relevant to what we're doing. For instance, sustainability, the term means many things to many people, and resiliency means many things to many people. And they're actually kind of related, but they're not the same. They're actually quite distinct in many respects. You can consider one short-term, one long-term. But I'd like to make an effort as we move forward to make sure that we agree on the operational definitions for some of the terms that we're using. And then later, especially when we start discussing metrics like greenhouse gas emissions, how we count them, what's counted, what's not counted, what's derated, what's not derated, and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of that's intuitive, but I have found, based on my experience in industry, that time spent up front defining what's in and out of scope, so to speak, and how various entities are calculated goes a long way to avoiding lots of debate and discussion and controversy later on. I'll just offer that, Jim. Anybody else have feedback for our guests?
So, Matt, if I could jump in just to
Sure,
piggyback on the technical question about the bounds of the inventory. Maybe, I don't know if this is the forum, but those models that I think Robert talked about, the EPA model or the German model, do those provide the bounds of what is in scope for the inventory? The Ulster County plan, I looked at that. You know, I think they look at like three types of emissions: indirect, direct, and then up to like employees commuting and procured materials and things like that. So where does the bounds of the inventory start and stop, I think is something I'm interested in.
Right. Those four scopes actually come directly from the ICLEI protocol for calculating local government emissions. So one of the advantages of using ICLEI is that it does define your boundaries very, very well. So it says where your emissions stop and someone else, or where your emissions end and someone else's responsibility begins for them. You know, there's always a problem with these greenhouse gas emissions is that it's always, you know, how far out do you go? And, but the protocol really does specify what is and isn't out. And that would keep us very much in line with what Rochester has done and what Ulster County has done as well.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Robert. Is there a website you can point us to, Robert, that describes the ICLEI technique in more detail? I'm familiar with the EPA process, but I've not done a lot with ICLEI.
Right. I can, I'll send you a link. There's several downloads of various manuals that are available there. Some of them come from third-party websites. I'm not exactly sure why, but we can download it all. The other alternative is that I can gather everything that I've already downloaded, simply put it in a zip file, and then put it someplace where people can upload it. So either way.
And Matt, Robert, can I just ask one more follow-up question? The Ulster County, we've heard about that a few times. In their plan, they talk about refrigerants. Is that in the ICLEI bounds of the scope as well? I know those have really high GWPs.
Yeah, hydrofluorocarbons are always a problem. I'll be honest in that I can't honestly say specifically that those are called out individually in the ICLEI methodology. There's a degree of flexibility about what is and isn't included in that protocol. If you know your particular community doesn't have a source, or you know if all of your air conditioning systems are already green or are already not using the more damaging hydrofluorocarbons, then it may not be an issue for you. It is listed as a contributing factor, and it is something that we usually calculate when we're doing an inventory. But it might be a very general calculation for a given area. It may not be as specific as trying to figure out what model air conditioning you have and what kind of coolant it's using, that sort of thing.
It's Kate McCardle. I can confirm that I think ClearPath has used that in their inventory. Just a side note.
Yeah.
Mike Garland, if Robert can zip file what he has already and send that to perhaps Tina, is that something we can put out for everyone to review?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we could all go to the website, but it might be more efficient to
Yeah.
take advantage of Robert's efforts to date so far.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can just, Bergman can send that to Joe, and Joe will work with Tina to make sure we have it posted on an accessible location for everybody.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
That's great.
Thank you. I'm curious what our students have to say. And again, we'll ask for some written feedback by, say, Tuesday, end of business, 5 p.m. or so, because I know we've just had the plan for a couple of days. But any preliminary thoughts?
I'm wondering, what are the steps where the county legislator will have to like approve the plan? Where are they involved?
Mike or Joe, you can.
Yeah, guessing probably at the end, right? For
Yep.
sure.
Yeah, you know, I'm, if I'm understanding the question, right, the, you know, the role of the county legislature would, you know, enter back into it if there was any agreement, new agreements that were going to be entered into, any new funding that was going to be sought, that kind of thing. But as far as most of the stuff that's contained here, and I'll, you know, also invite, you know, my colleague, legislator Ansello, to join in that. I think the vote by the legislature, unanimous vote to set up this committee, was kind of charging the committee to go ahead and come up with the plan with, you know, metrics, goals, all those kinds of things. I think there would be, I assume, you know, in other processes like this, a kind of final report back to the legislature that I think there would probably be a vote, not so much that it's an up and down, but to accept it, accept the work of the committee.
And there might be some efforts like climate smart communities, if that's a direction that the county ultimately chooses to go in, and that would require, you know, a resolution by the county leg.
Right.
So
Right.
there are some of those that come up along the way as well.
I know we were asking President Carbone to bring the resolution on the climate smart communities pledge to a vote. Do we know what the status of that is?
Yeah, I can tell you that at last week we had our committee meetings. We, you know, during the COVID time period, we are meeting as the total legislature, because they refer to it as the committee of the whole, and it was approved then. The actual vote to approve it will be at the next meeting, which is the second Tuesday in October. I think it's the 13th. And it'll be voted on at that time.
Thanks, Michael. Does anyone else have any feedback or questions for our guests this afternoon? And again, I'm going to encourage everyone to pour through the plan again in the draft format. Take a look at what the city of Rochester has done. Take a look at what Ulster County has done with Robert's zip files. Read through them over the weekend and get any feedback you have to Michael Ulison and myself, and we'll summarize that and get it into the county's hands.
I have a question.
Please do.
So this is for Mike Garland. Mike, obviously you'll have the lion's share of so much of this work, and the plan has the project team outlined, which of course is going to be across the county, airport, finance, HR, parks, all of that. And I'm sure you're in the process of designing that project team, pulling from, you know, the past work that you've done, but then kind of redesigning what that looks like. The plan here says that your internal team will attend scheduled monthly meetings, meaning coming to our meeting, I think. I just want to clarify, but also that you'll be meeting separately. Is that something, if there's a regularly scheduled meeting with your internal team, a way to kind of share information as you go about that process to let us know how your team is moving along? Is that a clear question?
Yeah, I think I know what you're asking, Kate. Yeah, we're still putting that team together. Again, it'll be similar in structure to what we've had before. And again, it's a working group where we can get information and ideas from them, talk about operations, get the opportunity for the consultant to interface directly with these groups. The monthly meeting itself really, I think, is intended more to be a working group meeting with us and the consultant.
Right.
If there's a need for anyone from that group to attend a monthly advisory committee meeting, by all means, we could certainly make that happen. But we would most certainly be sharing, what we're doing. Let's say we're doing a deep dive into parks or the airport, or for Pure Waters. And we're learning a lot and creating great ideas. We'll be certainly sharing that with the committee as we go along.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike.
Sure thing.
I have kind of a layman's question, if you will. We talked in some of the previous meetings about this phase one, focused on the county's operations, and talked previously about it building upon the good work that the county's already been done. So I guess asking, and this would either be Bergman or Mike Garland, is this to any degree doing, I'll call it new stuff, or is it improving, enhancing, updating the things that are already being done, or is there anything other than maybe like signing up for a new program that you're looking at that or thinking about that would be a new, if you will, initiative?
I'll take a first crack at it and then ask Bergman if they'd like to jump in. My expectation is, we'll take stock in what we've done, but that'll only be a starting point, that we're going to look for ambitious opportunities for the future, and then setting those goals, as Kim talked about. Maybe some of the work that we've done right now will help us get to those goals, but my guess is there's going to be a lot of work we're going to need to do, and new programs, new initiatives, new things that the county is going to have to introduce, bake into the plan, in which the legislature will accept, which they'll accept, or at least they'll vote on, if you will. But it's what we've done in the past is really just a starting point, is the way I would characterize that. And I'll turn it over to Kim.
I think that's absolutely right, Mike. And Mike, a couple of weeks ago, gave us a really great introduction overview of, a whole slew of programs and policies and successes that the county has experienced in recent years and initiatives that they have underway. But I would agree. I think that's a great framework, a great starting point. We want to leverage that. We want to build on that. And then we want to take it one step further, or two steps.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else want to share? Any preliminary feedback? Okay. Yeah, Sue, thanks. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer on goals. The other communities that were referenced all created plans before we had a New York State climate law. It makes no sense to me personally that our goals wouldn't match the new climate law, which is to be 80% fossil fuel free, net zero, right? By 2050, I think, yeah. So just throwing that out there. I know it's different than what the city did, and we fought for the city to be stronger, and the state already has a law, so. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah,
I imagine, Mike, the law is binding on the county then?
It certainly may be. We'll have to look at that, but I'm familiar with what Sue's talking about. I agree. We want to make sure we're in alignment with the state. If there's a reason why we would need to deviate from that, I think that's something we have to bring back to the committee, or certainly to the county administration. We rely heavily on the state for a lot of things. So if we're looking for funding in the future, if we're looking for other program opportunities, my guess is the state's going to expect that we're in alignment with their goals. When we developed the solid waste management plan, I know Kate's familiar with it, we made sure our diversion rate was consistent with what the state's goal was. That's what they look for. So I think that will be an element in Bergman's review as to those goals, and can help inform us when we get to a point where we're starting to assess our goals and opportunities.
Thanks, Mike. Anything else? If not, our thanks to Mike and Joe for inviting Andy, Kimberly, Jamie, and Robert. I'll suggest we move on. Mike, I understand we have a climate action website in the making. You want to tell us about that? Just unmute if you would, please.
You're muted, Mike.
Mike, you're muted.
Okay, there we go.
Now you're
How's
not.
that?
Yeah.
All
Good.
right, here we go. Just say, prepare yourself to be wowed by an impressive website. Let me get myself to it. This happened last time. There we go.
All right.
Share, is it not sharing?
There it is.
Can you see it? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so this was created by the with assistance from the County IS department. As you can see, it's consistent in format with other county web pages. Again, this is pretty old school design as far as websites are. The current administration inherited this website format. So the plan now is this is a start, and that the county will is in the process of reevaluating the entire website, making it more mobile friendly. It presently isn't mobile friendly, probably a whole new look and feel, but that's in development now. So what we wanted to do, this is a website that's housed under the Department of Environmental Services web page. As you can see, I'll just scroll to that and you can see this is, well, let's see, here we go, Environmental Services. So if someone were to go to the different departments, they'd scroll down to Environmental Services. There's an old school picture, and then you get into the climate action plan itself here. And it just gives a quick overview, gives the opportunity for people to watch meetings, summary of the legislative actions that have been taking place, public comment, where to go for that. As you can see, we have a dedicated email address, which Tina is monitoring, and she can also take calls as well too. It's got a makeup of the committee itself and its members. And in the bottom here, meeting notices, agendas, and meeting minutes. So it's relatively Spartan at this point, but it's a start and it's a place for people to go, and it'll be dynamic in the sense that it will be updated on a regular basis and people can get information there.
Thanks, Mike. So it's a work in progress, essentially.
Most definitely.
Nice start. A nice start.
Yes.
Yeah.
But happy to take any comments on it. We didn't, we gave the content really to the IS department to assist in framing this out. But I'm sure we will look to see what other communities have done in their websites and how, once we have information that's available to the community for their review, that will be hosted on here as well too.
Good deal.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that, there's already some good resources up here, but there's just almost no end to, with the administration's approval of, resources that could be posted there, and it being kind of a real, destination, if you will, for people who are looking for information. And that's something where I think, the members of this committee could be really helpful of, making suggestions on what might go there, even if it's just redirects to resources. So I'm excited to see this underway.
Great. We could have like an additional resources heading. Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good deal. Any other thoughts or comments to date? Thanks, Mike.
I do have one more. I think what I might suggest, can everyone see the county's homepage?
Yeah. Yes.
I brought up the homepage there, and as you can see in the left, we have these little applets over here where we've got Eco Park and curbside recycling. Maybe we can get one created for the climate action plan. So if someone arrives at the county's homepage, they can just click that link instead of having to drill down.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I agree.
We'll take
Probably
that
the way we want to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Looking good. Good start. Thank you.
Yeah, we're on our way.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you for that. And you are up again to talk about the next item. So I'll let you proceed.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Let's see, get myself situated here. And I want to bring up the PACE program. Okay, am I still sharing the screen? Can people see that?
Mike, we're not seeing the screen that you're referring to.
Yeah, we're still
Okay,
seeing the
Still
website.
saying the Monroe County Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee screen, but
Okay. I got to find a way to get back out here. Okay. Well, as you know, we did share I'll get there. Dang. I have it here. I just forgot how to share this. Okay. I know how we're going to do that. Give me a second, please. Sorry for the delay in this.
the technology is a great enabler, also the great disabler too.
It is. And I'm just trying to bring it up. I don't know what's causing this to not allow.
Did you end your previous screen sharing?
I may not have. And let's see where
I
that
want
went.
to end that one and then start a new one.
Yep. There we go. Okay. All right. Are we back? How are we
Yep,
doing?
we're seeing each other.
Okay.
Isn't this fun, Mike?
This is fun. I'm sorry. This happened last time. I'm kind of a Zoom dunce. Okay.
You're not the only one, Mike.
Now we see
I know.
Mike,
Okay.
now we're seeing your
We're
email.
dating ourselves.
What are we seeing, Patrick?
Your email.
Okay. All right. Well, at least this is where I'm going to start because there really isn't a whole lot to present.
Mike,
And
we
yeah.
have your email screen. There you
Okay.
There we go. There
go. Now
we
I
go.
see the kids.
Okay. Now you see the kids. Okay. All right.
Does everyone have the open CPACE flyer that came across the wire before our meeting? That was in the package Tina
There
sent.
you go. You got it, Mike.
You know what? As I have two monitors up. This is my first. Okay, here we go.
I got it.
Yep. There we
Don't
go.
change the thing. Don't change
Sorry
the
about
thing.
that, folks.
Okay, that's what I was referring to as well.
All right, so everyone has the flyer. This is a program that's been around for a while in New York State. In fact, when the first time I met with Liam and his team, this is one of his recommendations that the county take a hard look at this. And the county's looked at it twice. And in general terms, what this program provides is financing for private and not-for-profit facilities, building owners, to make energy upgrades to their buildings. And it has some advantages that other types of financing programs don't. So again, this is geared for the private sector for all intents and purposes, not for governmental entities. It's for commercial building owners and not-for-profit building owners to make energy upgrades.
Mike, we lost your screen share again. I love your kids, but there you go.
Okay, sorry. I moved it over to my other monitor. I guess I lost it. Okay, I'll keep it there. So it gives these opportunities that haven't been previously available. And what's unique, the PACE program, the acronym, as you can see here, is a Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's a public benefit authorized by state and local law. And the repayment is secured through a lien on the property. And what's unique about that is if you own the property and you make these improvements, if there is a payback schedule, maybe it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you sell the property before that loan is financing is come due, that will just transfer with the property. So it will pass on to the next property owner. That's unique. Usually folks have to pay off all that debt before the property can be sold or transferred. In this case, it stays with the property in the form of a lien on the property itself. This program is a local development corporation, also known as an LDC, kind of a bad three-letter acronym here in Monroe County, as folks know a little bit about the past experience that the county's had with LDCs. One of the reasons the last administration was hesitant to pursue this, but based on our evaluations thus far, this looks like it's a very viable program, and we'll continue to do the evaluation. So the goal here really today is just to talk about this program, make sure folks have a general understanding of what it's about, and then make a recommendation. if they feel this requires further analysis, to make a recommendation back to the county legislature or to President Carbone, and then they would then recommend it to the administration for further evaluation. And that would be from a technical, financial, and legal standpoint, what would need to be done. So let's just talk a little bit about the program itself. As you can see here, it offers, it's different than traditional bank loans. They can fund up to 100% of the project cost. They can get competitive private financing from these financial providers that are already approved by the EIC, customizable loans. The benefit assessment lien, again, is subordinate to municipal taxes or mortgages for that matter. Automatically transfers to a new owner, and it makes them available for other potential opportunities through NYSERDA. So it's a unique program. What does the county have to do? The municipality has to pass a local law and sign a municipal agreement. The county then becomes a member of the EIC itself to be able to offer this. Then we're really the municipality that allows it to move forward because we have tax lien authority. That's why the county is involved. Again, it's available to all local municipalities, within a member county, except for cities. The city of Rochester, other cities can pursue that. I understand the city of Rochester is already looking at it. I don't think they're a member yet. I could be wrong. I did go on the website to see who the current members were. There's a number of counties that are members of this program. No fee for the county to join. We don't have a responsibility for program administration or have any financial exposure. The original, version of the PACE program going back a few years, the county did have a responsibility for program administration and had a financial exposure. And that was a real non-starter for Monroe County and many other municipalities across New York State. Just a couple years ago, they changed it and made it far more attractive. Again, we took a hard look at it, but the hard stop at the time for the county was the fact that it was an LDC. But anyway, once the program is enabled, we're able to provide that public benefit, but EIC administers a program. The county doesn't get involved, and that's where the EIC steps in and works with that prospective customer on pursuing financing for energy programs. That's it in a nutshell. I think it's worthy of a deeper dive. What I would do if the committee is favorably inclined to submit a letter to the legislature saying that the committee recommends a county evaluate this, that we would then dig into the program further and come back with a decision on whether or not to pursue this. But I would expect it's going to be favorably considered. I know the CFO, Bob Franklin, has familiarity with this program as well from prior evaluations. So that's in a nutshell. I can give you a little bit of an overview in terms of what other communities have been involved. Albany County is involved in the program, Buffalo, Chautauqua, Columbia, Dutchess, Cortland, Franklin, Madison, Montgomery, Nassau, Suffolk. Several other counties are part of this program already. So I think it's certainly a step in the right direction. This would provide benefit in our phase 2 so that if other agencies outside of the county operations, again, their community plan in phase 2, if they're taking advantage of this, this is something that would be viewed as a positive thing and certainly contribute towards achieving our goals. So that's it in a nutshell. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of risk for the participating municipality. Is there anything I'm missing, Mike?
No, and I think that's something that we would want to then flesh out a little bit. Oops, sorry, I'm sharing the screen again. There we go. You're not seeing the screen anymore, correct?
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Sorry about all that technical. I'm not quite as technically challenged as I appear to be. But nevertheless, I think the risk is minimal. To answer your question, the risk was much higher in a prior version of that. So, but again, I want the attorneys and CFO again to look at it and go from there.
Yeah, I just didn't detect any downsides right away. The interest rates are probably super low. That's what I'm guessing. And you were mentioning the terms are 20 to 30 years. Mike, do we have any idea how much money the other counties have attempted to borrow to date so far? Are we talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars? I'm just curious. And we may not know. We may not know. Yeah, maybe Sue does. Sue, you might have some background.
Well, maybe I misunderstand, but I don't think the county is borrowing anything, right? It's the property owner essentially
Okay.
is the borrower, and it's just going on
Yep,
to.
that's correct.
All right. So the lien is attached to the property then, not to the
Correct.
county or the town or village. Okay.
Makes
All
it
right.
even less risky, and I think it's a total no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move forward with the recommendation.
Yeah, I do too.
Yep. You're exactly, Sue explained it correctly. It's the private funder financer would work directly with that company and through the EIC. The county stays out of it. But once it's established, that debt obligation then would go on the lien.
Okay. Yeah, so the county really, or the municipality is just an enabler more than anything else, right?
It really is. And
Catalyst.
then that lien is subordinate to the taxes. So the county wouldn't be, or a town or a village wouldn't be impacted from a tax standpoint.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be, I think, that would otherwise be a stumbling block, but, that would really, I think, make people at a county level comfortable. And then, of course, the towns, any lost or unpaid tax revenue, it has to be made up by the county. So they also wouldn't have a concern there. So definitely something we're interested in hearing more about.
Not a risk to the county, but have any private lenders or banks had issues with that program?
Good question. And not that I'm aware of, John. I think that's something we'll take a look at. The website does list a number of the different lenders that are part of the program. But I think as we look at the program and look at the past and the performance really of the program, I think we'll be in a better position to make a recommendation on moving forward.
It's been probably a year since I've looked at this, but I feel like I remember that the state, when they allowed this program, that they had some involvement in vetting who the lenders are. If that's any assurance to you.
Well, I guess my question was, it sounds like the lien is above a mortgage. So would the mortgage lender have any problems with that?
Good question. Yeah, this would be subordinate to the mortgage too. So taxes and mortgage would be above this lien.
That clarifies. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm with Sue, Mike. Unless anyone else objects, I don't see any reason not to continue to pursue this avenue.
Okay, great. I mean, obviously, maybe you want to ask for a vote from the group. And if it's favorable, then we would prepare a letter for the chairperson's review and approval. And that could be submitted like we did for the climate pledge.
Okay, good deal. Yeah. Does anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
I will.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah. I would definitely make a motion asking that this be referred to the president of the legislature and the administration as appropriate for further investigation.
Good. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think the ayes, Mike, have the day. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you. Yep, we'll get on that.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Good deal. The last item, Michael, on the agenda is the public forum for which registration is required, but I don't believe we've had anyone register, have we?
We do not.
We do not.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's certainly an opportunity for anybody who has just some general questions. And I actually have one that kind of is tied to the last item. So while this is not yet in place here for Monroe County, I was going to ask this anyways, is anyone in this group familiar with any programs that are built to have improvements like a new HVAC system for an organization? I'm thinking of not-for-profits, but I guess it could be others, where the repayment is somehow tied to the savings from increased energy efficiency. So if you get a more efficient boiler, heating system, and you're able to calculate some amount that's being saved, that money goes to pay back the improvement. So is anybody aware of anything akin to that?
I mean, I think that's the C-PACE, the way that those are supposed to be structured for commercial properties.
Yeah.
I don't know of anything that's currently available at the household level, but maybe Kate or something.
Well, I was thinking more of the, not the business, but like the several not-for-profits that, have aging facilities. I mean, I work at one. Templebrook Codish is 60 years old and has pretty much original equipment, but a new system is roughly $600,000, which they don't have the money to do. However, we spend about $80,000 to $90,000 a year on energy, and we're told that this could probably increase efficiency by like 50%. So I didn't know, this obviously would be a good program once in place. It just made me wonder if there is anything else that anybody's aware of that's like this.
Yeah, I don't know. Am I unmuted? Yeah. Off the top of my head, but I certainly could find out pretty quickly. So let's put that as an action item for me to look into and get back to the group.
Sounds good, but the CPA will work for not-for-profits too. It's just really any large kind of property. Okay.
Yeah.
That's clear.
Good
Anybody else have any comments or questions or?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, please do.
The 9 to 12 month timeline that we mentioned for the climate action plan earlier, I just wanted to clarify, is that just for phase 1 or is that for both phases?
That is for phase 1.
Well, that might not be all bad because maybe by then the state will have committee for the climate action plan will release their plan. So maybe that'll inform phase 2.
Yeah, and from a funding perspective, knowing what's happening at the state level and that they have 40 vacancies within the climate action department, even if we were to go to funding, we're not going to be moving anytime soon on the state level, unfortunately.
Well, that brings up a good point, Kate. Mike and Michael and committee members, we've been essentially chartered for a year, but there's probably no reason in the world we couldn't continue as the Climate Action Advisory Committee for another 6 months or maybe another 12 months, right? I imagine we'd have to go before the legislature again and be reauthorized. The original resolution, I think, called for a limited time frame of about a year.
It really did. You're right about that, Matt, that it was, the plan was to be completed from the creation of the committee. And at that point, we all know it's not realistic. And I think that was really put in place to say, hey, we want to, the intent was to be aggressive about it and really move it forward. But in reality, to do a plan and do it right, we're going to need more time than a year. So that might be something we can talk to the legislature about to see what actions would need to be made so that we have adequate time for both phase 1 and then certainly phase 2. And that's going to be unique because we're going to need a lot of time for public input and participation.
Right. I think we'll just get warmed up in phase 1.
Right.
And that would be not the time to disband. I know, thanks to the coronavirus, we got started later than we wanted to, but we didn't really have much choice in that matter. So,
Mike or Kim or anyone else, that would be able to speak to this. Does the way things lay out and kind of going to, Liam's question, are some of the steps regarding phase 2 able to be started before the completion of phase one. So Matt and I were talking earlier today about phase two and about, you know, really that being an area where we're going to have to really have a good discussion and input from this group as well as others about what they'd like to tackle. And Matt and Mike have talked a couple of times about getting input, especially from the young people who are on this committee, but also with them, but possibly facilitating a wider discussion of other young people. And it's interesting in a time where we're not able to get together in person and doing things like we are today on Zoom, it does kind of lend itself to being able to bring together people, young people, as well as older people from across the community to, you know, in group discussions just like this, and to talk about things that different towns, communities might want to undertake, you know, with our encouragement and support. So I'm just wondering about that. I know we're not to that point yet, but just in terms of starting the, you know, some of the steps regarding a phase two.
You know, certainly let Mike chime in from the county's perspective, but, you know, from our perspective, the reason that phase two couldn't start at some point parallel and run parallel to phase one. There are going to be some foundational elements from phase one that will create a good starting block for phase two, but there truly is no reason why you couldn't start elements of kind of phase two in that larger perspective planning effort, even while phase one is getting wrapped up. And Mike might completely disagree with me, and he trumps anything I've just said.
No, Kim, that makes great sense. And I'm sure Joe and Pat agree as well too. You know, we want to take advantage of opportunities where we can keep the train rolling and efficiently. So we will harness those opportunities as we move forward, so that we're not necessarily doing things entirely in series, right? There'll be elements that will be done in parallel, and just to maximize our time and progress on that.
Agreed.
Can I add one thing as well? So going back to Liam's question about legislature plans, the outward-facing plan phase two is something that might be potentially adopted by the legislature, much like a comprehensive plan would. So going back to your question, Liam, that's where the legislature may need to weigh in if that's something that the legislature and the administration decide to do. But a phase one typically wouldn't go through that process because it's so internal focusing. Something I just wanted to add from before.
Yep, and it's a good point, Pat. It'll be interesting because the legislature has been so actively involved in creating the committee. They might want to. We'll certainly give them the opportunity, and we'll let the chairs obviously bring that back to President Carbone if there is a desire. And I know what you meant, Pat. Typically, things like that are just becomes a county plan. But if there's a commitment to resources and things of that nature, they might want to get in, adopted early, and especially if we, develop goals. So could be done in two phases. They adopt the first phase and the second phase, which would be kind of where I expect it would likely go, but TBD.
Yeah, good point, Pat. Thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Right. I'd like to add one more thing. Matt, this goes back to your point about the scope, the draft of this, and the discussion, the good discussions we've had here. I'd prefer not to extend this any further because I'm responsible for getting them under contract, and I can't do that until we go through the legislative process. So I was hoping after this meeting, Kim would have enough information to turn around a fee schedule for me, because I really need that. Okay. And it's not to say that, someone thinks of something after. I just don't want any earth-shattering changes, to the scope, because that would affect how Kim puts together her fee schedule, her person hour schedule for this too. Which I haven't heard anything here that I thought, but I'm not in everyone's brain. I can't just, wait till next week, because then I'm going to miss the ledge cycle, and then that's just going to delay things. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does, Joe. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. I'm glad you brought it up, because this is really a question back to the committee. is Joe will be working with Kim and her team, and obviously with Pat's input as well too, on finalizing the scope, the fees. So it's going to evolve. It's going to go through another iteration. We'll be meeting again in November. I expect the committee will want their eyes on this again one more time. But if we wait till the November meeting, it's going to delay our ability to get it in. I see Kate shaking her head. No, we don't want to delay, right? We want to get this into the ledge as quickly as humanly possible. So, Joe, I think what you had in mind too is once we have something that we think is ready to roll, we'll get it out to the committee, and maybe that's something if we have to schedule a special meeting, or if you want to say, hey, we send it out to everybody. If no one has any comments,
Okay.
to go.
Yeah,
Good points. Yeah, that works for me. Yeah.
I'd prefer not to have a meeting. Agree. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you too, Mike. I mean, that's how the process usually is. I don't mind sending it out to everybody. Just, you need a timely fashion to get your comments back on that finalized scope, so we can, keep the ball moving.
If there are parts of phase 2 that would start, that would run parallel to phase 1, would we need those to be a part of the phase 1 scope, or when would we expect to receive a phase 2 scope?
I can answer. Well, it's just an amendatory process. No. So everything, we wouldn't put anything in there with phase 2 now, but that doesn't mean right after we get started, like Kim said, there's some baseline information or as a base, some stuff that we're getting, then we can just add on, we'll just add on, we'll have a second scope, for that phase 2 stuff, but and get it started as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Joe, from a feedback standpoint, do you want to consider today's meeting the informal end of feedback on what you've given us so far for phase 1? I understand you want to move forward and get the fee schedule established and not delay. Or would you like some written feedback at some point in time, maybe even earlier than say next Tuesday, maybe even,
Well,
whatever makes sense for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll pose the question to Kim as far as, because I know she's been taking notes, listening to everything everyone's been saying, as she went through the draft scope and listened to those. So I was hoping she could just digest everything that's been said here, and then like Mike said, she'll get it into a finalized format, and we'll do the same thing. We'll internally, between me and Pat, we'll go through some things, and then we're gonna present it to you guys again, to everybody on the committee in an email essentially, and say, here it is. This is your last turn. Please get your comments back to me on such and such a date.
Okay, fair enough. That works. Understood. Yeah, good point. Co-Chair Michael, who are we missing today? I know Legislator Boyce is not with us. Other than that, I think we have a fairly full house. I'm
Matt,
just wondering.
that is correct. Everyone is here.
Okay, except Carla.
Yes.
I just wonder if one of us could touch base with Carla, maybe Co-Chair Udelson or fellow legislator Ansello, just a briefer on what we're doing, what we've accomplished today, and if she has any feedback herself, and then I think we can call that a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
I can touch base with Carla.
Thank you. Excellent. Anything else? Our next scheduled meeting is the first Thursday of November, which is November 5th. I guess we'll Zoom again, and maybe one of these days, maybe next year, we can get together in person for a change. But right now, we're gonna have to settle for likenesses of each other over the wire. Any other feedback or comments? Again, a special thanks to our guests from Bergman and Michael Baker, Robert, Bobby. Thanks, Joe, for your comments, and for Mike and Tina's efforts. If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Can make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Wait,
I'll go ahead and second.
What's the next step that we're taking on the PACE finance? Is someone writing a letter to President Carbone?
That was my understanding. I think the county has that action, Mike, you and your staff, unless you need any assistance from us on the committee.
We'll draft a letter and we'll get it to you for your review and then signature.
Okay.
Could I raise one question before we adjourn?
Yeah, so go ahead, please.
As a possible item to consider for next month, maybe, is Monroe County is like the only county that is not a clean energy community. And might we want to consider moving in that direction while we're waiting for our climate action planning to go forward. So
That is, my understanding is that is in the scope under this, and it was an action, a purpose in the plan, right?
but does it
That's right.
have to be within that plan? Why not move forward with that outside of the plan?
Could be a parallel effort, right? Mhm.
Right, exactly. I mean, one doesn't preclude the other. It's pretty low
No.
benchmarking kind of steps.
Yep.
Just, I don't know if we want to have some discussion about that or,
Well, you know, Sue, in many ways, the county may already be there. I think there are, what, 4 high energy or high impact practices I remember from 10 that we have to show we conform to.
yeah,
like I
Mike,
feel-
I know how close we are, but there's going to be new grant funding coming out. And it would be a shame for the county to miss out being able to apply,
Yeah.
you know?
Maybe we do this, because you're right, Sue, we'd identified that as a topic that we could, you know, sink our teeth into as the plan is developing.
Mhm.
And you're right, Bergman had identified that would be something that would be incorporated into the plan, but there's no reason why we can't start at least looking at it and understanding it as a committee while the Bergman's getting under contract. And I'm sure Kim would be happy to provide just some input or feedback on that as well too.
Yeah, in a lot of respects, Mike, we may already be there at a county level, right? When you look
Yes.
at the high impact practices, right? I think
Right,
if I
and I
remember
think-
correctly, there were 10 and you've got to basically show evidence that you conform to 4, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
For yeah.
And as a county, we're limited to what we can do. So that it's actually much fewer than 10. So our scope or our goals would be cut down for us significantly.
Yeah, but there must be 4.
Oh, there are. Yes, absolutely.
That could make this a whole lot easier, Pat.
Yes,
That's right.
exactly. So we don't have to look at all 10, in other words.
Right.
No, you're right. You actually just choose 4. Yeah. Okay. Good deal.
It's a good point,
All right.
Pat.
We'll add that to the agenda then for next time.
Good. And I think Kate had an action for us too, right? Kate? did you
I
take
had an action.
Did you
Oh,
take
yeah.
action?
So
Yes.
I'm going to look back on the funding piece. Thank you. I wrote
Yeah,
it
there you
down, I
go.
swear.
All right, good. Good.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we had a motion to adjourn. I'll throw in a second. Thank you again to everyone, including our guests. And I'm sure we'll stay in touch by email and phone, and we'll meet again on Thursday the 5th. How's that?
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.